On the latest episode of the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast, we're here to chat about one of the biggest hits for Prince, especially the biggest hit that Prince had off of the Around the World in a Day album. And we're talking about Raspberry Beret, of course. Joining me is Karen Shedrick.
Hello, hello.
Hi, Karen.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. How about yourself, and what do you think about this song?
Well, like you said, it was a very popular song, and for me, I remember when the song came out, and I definitely remember the video. I remember the release on MTV and how excited everybody was because this was, after Purple Rain, and nobody really knew what to expect. And to see him on the video, he looked different. He had different hair. The video had a different vibe to it. So it was just very exciting to see what we were going to, or see or hear what we were going to hear from Prince. And I especially liked the song. To me, it almost sounded like it almost had like a country feel to it. The lyrical content, a lot of country songs have they tell a story.
The way that the song structure is, and you just change one of the instruments slightly. You throw in like a pedal steel guitar and maybe slow it down a bit. This could easily be a crossover country hit from the 80s. And
right.
Yeah, and doing that kind of makes the songs relatable, especially if it's a story that is rooted in reality, rooted in a situation that people can relate to. And Raspberry Beret is certainly one of those songs because in its essence, it's really a song about, somebody's first time, like losing their virginity, having sex for the first time. Mm-hmm. And that's a very relatable story, and all the little things that surround that event are stuck in our memories. Good or bad, some of it's very awkward and some of it could be really kind of eye-opening and amazing, but usually it's some sort of combination of all those things. It's a little bit
right.
Good, a little bit bad, a little bit awkward. But yeah, Raspberry Beret is a very interesting song coming off of Purple Rain, because as you said, the visuals of the video really kind of make it striking in its tone. It's bright, right? The music video is really bright and colorful, and Prince has got that suit on. Is it a cloud suit, or he's got
the cloud suit?
Yes, the cloud suit. Got the cloud guitar. You've got partial animated section in the middle. And you mix a little bit of the live music video feel where the band is playing together on the stage in front of all those people with some animated portions. And I don't think that had been done before in a Prince video. There was any animation that I can recall, at least. So it's just a very different video, which kind of goes along with the vibe of the colorful album cover Around the World in a Day. Kind of getting Prince out of the shadows from the Purple Rain movie and videos that were associated with that, getting him off like that dark stage, like First Avenue stage, really put some brightness to it and brightness to the song. And the song is a very bright song. Would you agree with that, at least?
I do. I think the video definitely went along with the song. I think the video was almost psychedelic looking. Mm-hmm. Definitely a lot of color, a lot of visual images. And I noticed, like, when the group of the dancers were doing the little dance that they were doing together, I was like, that's the same dance that was done in Purple Rain when Dez was performing. Modern Air.
Oh yeah.
That same little dance that they were doing, they also did it in Raspberry Beret. I thought that was different, and then or the similar. And then, if I'm not mistaken, the guitar he was using was the guitar from Purple Rain, and when he performed Purple Rain. But yeah, the colors definitely different from the dark, kind of sexy vibe of Purple Rain. Definitely agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. It was very different looking for those of us that were still kind of in that Purple Rain mode because this song came out, it was released like in April or May of 1985, if I recall correctly. And
Yes.
that's like a year to the month that When Doves Cry was released. Like the song that kind of kicked off the entire Purple Rain album cycle and single cycle. So a short year, like I can't even imagine that. And I think I said that earlier in a different episode where just the quick turnaround for this album release and this single release after the Purple Rain success is just astonishing to me because it really it should have just been 1985 should have been just more Purple Rain. I mean, if you're thinking of it just from a financial and what makes sense financially for your career, just use that year to keep touring, keep promoting singles, keep talking about the music and talking about some of the side acts that were releasing music around the same time, like the Time and Sheila E. and Apollonia 6. But yeah, no, he didn't do that at all, and he just completely switched gears, and now we've got this entire new album of songs to listen to. Yeah, it certainly was something that came right on the heels of the last single that was released, which was I think Take Me With You. And then bam, 2 months later we've got Raspberry Beret from an entirely new album. And with a new look, like you said, his hairstyle was different, which if I recall reading correctly, it had something to do with he like tried to dye his hair blonde and it didn't really work out that well. It kind of damaged his hair. So I think, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was a wig he was wearing in the video for Raspberry Beret.
What? Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it kind of looks a little odd, don't you think? So I mean, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was kind of cute, and people would say that he looked like Liza Minnelli, like the kind of cut.
Yeah.
I remember hearing that.
Yeah, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So Raspberry Beret was a big hit in the United States. Actually, it was a bigger hit here in the States than it was just about anywhere else in the entire world. It was the first single released from around the world in a day in the US and Japan, but it wasn't the first single released in other countries like in Europe and Australia. The first song that they got was Paisley Park. That was their kind of like first introduction to Prince's new sound and Prince's new album. I think because it was the first single released off of the next project, the next thing that Prince was doing after Purple Rain, really helped it become a big success in the States because we're all just really excited about it. While leading off the album release cycle with Paisley Park, which is a great song. I love Paisley Park, but I get it's not quite as commercial friendly, pop friendly. And so I kind of understand why maybe if Paisley Park was the first single released off of the album in Europe and people listened to it and they weren't really digging that new style and they digging the new sound, the next single, Raspberry Beret, they might not have been quite as amped up to hear and buy the single or request it on the radio or whatever. But here in the States, it was a massive hit, and it really has all of the elements that are needed for like a really popular pop song. I think it's one of Prince's more clear-cut pop songs. There's really very little funk integrated into the sound of this song. I put it like right up with like I guess Cream and maybe The Most Beautiful Girl in the World as far as like Prince's most pure pop songs, the ones that are just crafted in like this pop music laboratory and he put the ingredients in and it outspits these these kind of like three similar songs in my mind. Um, Popular as the songs from Purple Rain were, they had a different sound, and they could have been, very big hits on different formats. But Raspberry Beret was just pop, plain and simple. I think, at least. Is that kind of what you think about it, or do you think of the song in a different manner?
I agree. I mean, it's 100% pop, and like you said, it's a fun song. It's definitely, something that anybody can listen to. So I definitely agree that it's a definite pop influence. And again, maybe the reason for it was because he wanted, to really depart from the feel of Purple Rain, and he wanted to, just do something fun, something different, so that, to kind of surprise people. I can do pop too, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this song is kind of interesting because it has its roots go back to 1982, around the time that he was, making songs for what would be 1999. And I've never heard like the very first version, the very first take of this song before, because I guess it was according to Prince Vault, it was reworked quite significantly between the 1982 version that he had written and made a demo of and the version that was recorded in the fall of 1984 when he was, putting the finishing touches on songs for Around the World in a Day. So my guess is that, Prince has a very distinct sound from like that 82 era with the Lynn drum machine and a lot of synths. And I imagine like the first version of Raspberry Beret sounds drastically different than the version we end up getting, because I think in late '84 he was experimenting with a lot of different instruments, a lot of different sounds. He had a lot more strings in his music. He already touched on the finger cymbals, which has like this Middle Eastern flair to it that a lot of the songs off this album have. So I take it like the lyrics are probably there and maybe similar or exact. I don't know. We'll have to wait, and maybe Around the World in a Day deluxe edition someday will come out and we'll be treated to that version. But my guess is that the lyrics are very similar between the two versions, but the music is just like completely 180-degree difference. If I had to put any money down on it, that's what I would guess.
Yeah, I definitely believe that we'll hear it, the original version, in a re-release.
I hope we're both right on that one because I want
Yes.
that version a lot.
Hmm.
So as I mentioned, this is a very accessible song. People can relate to the lyrics. He's not talking about like in Paisley Park or on songs like Around the World in a Day. He's not talking about like this concept of like this theoretical location within us that we can all go in order to find inner peace. This is just a flat out song about a sexual encounter that he had with a really pretty girl.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
the lyrics that get us there, that get us to the point where we're kind of understanding where the song is going, it's told like a story. It has
Hmm.
basically three verses, and each verse is like a chapter in a story, I guess, like a really short story about this encounter, or it's like almost like a diary entry where somebody is trying to recollect this situation that he found himself in. What was happening in my life when I met this girl? Oh, I was working part-time at a five and dime.
Hmm.
What was she wearing? That's a really kind of striking imagery and something that you can remember. Like, I don't remember much about her, but oh, she had that raspberry beret. That's something I remember.
Right.
It's almost like he's the character that Prince is playing in the song is retelling this story from like decades past. Like, this is just him relating a story about his first time, years and years after it occurred, and some of the things that really stuck out for him. The sounds, the smells, the looks of what his world was like when this encounter happened. So like with this song being so popular and so kind of like easy to sing along, there's going to be situations as we start going through the lyrics here shortly where as a kid listening to the song, I had a lot of like misheard lyrics, like things that I thought that he said and found out later that I was wrong. Did you have any of those
Me too. Me
situations?
too. Yeah.
So we'll have to compare notes about what were the lines as we go through the verses that you misheard, and maybe they're the same ones that I misheard as a kid as well.
I think for me, it may not have been so much that I misheard them, but that I didn't really interpret them right. I think
Sure.
that was my thing. Yeah.
That's definitely possible. There's always that chance of a line, even if you hear it right, not quite understanding its real meaning, or the intention behind that line. All right, so I think this is about as good a time as any to start going through the lyrics. All right, so the first verse of the song, and sing along if you're listening to this podcast at home because everybody knows the lyrics to the song.
Mm-hmm.
I was working part-time in a five and dime. My boss was Mr. McGee. He told me several times that he didn't like my kind, because I was a bit too leisurely. Seems that I was busy doing something close to nothing, but different than the day before. That's when I saw her. Ooh, I saw her. She walked in through the outdoor. And then he says, she wore a, and then you go to the chorus. So the first verse, it's really kind of like, if you go back to the concept, this is like a short story or somebody's recollection. It's like the setup, he's trying to set the scene for what's to come. Where was he when this situation occurred? Well, like I said, he's working part-time in a five and dime. So, it was just a kind of like one of those dead end jobs that, teenagers have just to make some spending cash. Mr. McGee was his boss, just kind of like just some random name. Could be anybody, just everybody knows a quote unquote Mr. McGee in their life, just some older guy that, you worked for, I guess, for a short period of time. And he didn't like his kind because he was too leisurely. So I just take that to mean he didn't like him because he thought Prince was lazy. Is that kind of what you get out of that?
I got the same thing. Typical of an older boss and a teenage worker. You're not taking this seriously. You're lazy, and he's probably like, "Yeah, I know it."
Right.
Yeah, I'm lazy.
This is not my career. This is just a job that I'm doing to get by. And I think it's kind of it's humorous imagery to just kind of imagine Prince just hanging out in this store, this five and dime, just leaning against the counter, talking to the pretty girls that walk in, not really doing what he's supposed to be doing, paying attention to customers, trying to make any sales. Not that you really need to make sales in a five and dime. You just basically have to ring people up and answer their questions if they have any. But yeah, I just like I can see like Mr. McGee walking around like, you've got time for leaning, you got time for cleaning type.
That's right.
And so I just like how that paints a picture in our mind about what he's doing and the kind of where he's at in this early verse. And it seems that I was busy doing something close to nothing. Once again, just kind of speaking to the boredom of these types of part-time jobs that a lot of teenagers and young adults have. They're just mundane, boring. There's nothing exciting. You don't have to really think too hard. You just kind of have to exist and be there and fill a spot on the roster, to get through the workday. So, anything in this first verse that you really like besides what we talked about, or anything that you misheard potentially in this first verse?
I didn't mishear this part, but I really thought it was cute the way he put in the whole work vibe with the boss, and I thought that was really unique. I thought that was cute, and I thought that really added to the song. To, like you said, it created a story, not just let's get to the part where we have sex or whatever. He created a whole story around it, which I thought was really fun and different for him to do that. So I definitely like that.
Yeah, it's like he's creating like this imaginary world that we're in for the 4 minutes that the song exists, and you just have to use your imagination because we've all been in these types of stores. We've all seen these types of workers and these kids doing their part-time jobs, and many of us have been in those situations, so we could just even put ourselves in that.
Right.
The only thing I wanted to mention about towards the end, for any of you classic rock fans out there, he says she walked in through the outdoor, and like I think it was maybe 5 years earlier, Led Zeppelin's final studio album was titled "In Through the Outdoor." So
Mm.
I don't know if, if that was an accident or if Prince heard that phrase from listening to the Led Zeppelin album or knowing that it existed, even if he never listened to it, you can be aware of its existence, and thought that it was kind of a funny phrase, somebody walking in through the outdoor. And in the kind of foreshadowing a little bit to a line that Prince says later about speaking about this girl's intelligence. So you kind of get the impression right off the bat with
Yeah.
this line, she walked in through the outdoor, that she's either a little quirky, doesn't really care about following the rules, or she just really isn't all that bright and she didn't pay attention and she's like, yeah, I'm just gonna go through this door. I don't really care if it's in or out. This is what I'm gonna do.
I felt like that, she was, he did mention that she wasn't so bright, but I felt in that instance, like you said, that she was like, I'm going to do what I want to do. And if I want to walk through this door, I'm going to walk through this door. Kind of like that.
Certainly can be interpreted that way, where she's not gonna be bound by traditional rules of society that say this one says
Right.
out. Well, who cares? Just because it says out doesn't mean that I can't walk in through it. This is the door I want to walk through. What are you going to do about
Right.
it? Okay, so then the chorus is also, I feel like me saying the chorus and repeating the lines in the chorus is almost silly at this point because everybody knows the chorus, but I'm going to do it anyway because that's what I do. She wore a raspberry beret, the kind you find in a second-hand store. Raspberry beret. And if it was warm, she wouldn't wear much more. Raspberry beret. I think I love her. Okay, so anything on the chorus you wanted to mention, Karen? Anything that you potentially misheard here? Because I certainly do.
Yeah. Well, when the part, if it was warm, she wouldn't wear much more. I'm thinking, okay, well, what did she have on, with this raspberry beret? But I thought it was cute that he mentioned, the kind that you find in a secondhand store, and I thought that was unique in that, she looked different. She didn't look like, the average girl, with wearing this raspberry beret. I thought that was a little take on her appearance, that she was kind of unique in a quirky sort of way.
The kind you find in a secondhand store, to me, implies a little bit that she's thrifty a bit,
Yeah.
and isn't afraid to wear something that is somebody else's rejected clothing, or that it probably isn't the hottest, the highest of fashion, or isn't the latest trend. Because secondhand stores typically don't carry the latest trends. I mean, that's just not what they do. They carry stuff that was maybe popular 20 years ago, 10 years ago. Somebody unloaded it, and she was browsing through this store one day and saw this beret, and she's like, I like it. I don't really care if anybody else thinks that it looks neat or makes me look good, or all that matters is that I like the color of it. I like how I look with it on, and so damn it, I'm gonna wear it. And once again, that speaks to the kind of the quirkiness of her character that we've already kind of touched on. And raspberry as a color, typically, I guess, you think of raspberries, the fruit, so you immediately go to like, what's the color of a raspberry? Well, it's kind of like this dark shade of red, not as dark maybe as a cherry, but something between like the traditional red and a dark red that a cherry has. So you immediately start to think like, okay, raspberries. they have their own kind of unique shade of red, and it's almost like a reddish purple, I guess. I'm not real great at describing colors, but if you say raspberry, I think everybody kind of has in their mind what that looks like. The line that I always misheard was where he says, "And if it was warm, she wouldn't wear much more." I wasn't sure early on if he was saying if it was worn, she wouldn't wear it much more. Like worn meaning like tattered, or like starting to fall apart. Because it's secondhand store, so you kind of already assume that it's been worn, like it came from somebody else's closet, somebody else's wardrobe, and she's wearing it secondhand. So it maybe already is getting towards the end of its lifespan, and like it doesn't have that many more wears left in it. So I guess that's kind of where my head was going when I thought I heard if it was worn, she wouldn't wear it much more. But warm makes much more sense because you're not typically wearing like these heavy cloth hats on your head once it becomes summer. Once the temperature starts to rise, it just is not practical.
Exactly. And then you could also kind of look at that like he was assuming that she was loose, or like if it was warm, she wouldn't wear much more than that. Like that she's kind of like easy, or kind of that kind of girl.
Certainly, and I honestly, as a kid, I never took those lyrics that way, but I can certainly see where that's going, or where that could potentially be interpreted that in that manner. So that's kind of a new take on it for me, new take on the chorus in that line in particular, because I never really considered that, because I've always had it in my head it was either worn or warm. And then the whole wouldn't wear much more part was less of something that I thought about. I didn't think about that half of that sentence as much as the first half of the sentence. So thanks for bringing that up, because I hadn't considered that before. And I do like how he ends the chorus with the whole "I think I love her" line. It just also speaks again a little bit to his youth, the character's youth, where somebody walks in and you say, "I think I love her." He hasn't really even had like a conversation with her. He just is in love with her appearance, thinks she's just beautiful, and that's just an easy way to say like she's gorgeous,
Right.
All right, so then the second verse goes, "Built like she was, she had the nerve to ask me if I planned to do her any harm. So look here, I put her on the back of my bike, and we went riding down by old man Johnson's farm. I said now overcast days never turned me on, but something about the clouds and her mixed. She wasn't too bright, but I could tell when she kissed me, she knew how to get her kicks." What do you like about this second verse, and what do you find interesting or kind of cool, or something that sticks with you long after the song was released?
Well, I like the fact that they, or Prince, or they didn't waste any time, connecting with one another. They met, they talked briefly, apparently. I'm not sure, why she would think he would do her harm. It may have been that he was a little bit too forward when he approached her, but apparently they had a connection. They liked each other, and she ended up going for a ride with him. So there was like an instant connection, attraction between the two of them, which I thought was cute. And, when he said, I put her on the back of my bike and we went riding down by old man Johnson's farm, I thought of the scene from Purple Rain, when he had Apollonia on the back of his bike and they were riding through the farmlands and whatnot. And the infamous barn scene that I've never seen. So it made me think about that whole scene from Purple Rain when I first heard the song.
Yeah, the second verse does a lot of that. Like it really harkens back to Purple Rain, which is interesting because you could tell like when Prince was making this album, he was seemingly like over it, like completely over Purple Rain. He had written all those songs mostly in 1983, by late '84, he'd already filmed the movie. The songs were a year to year and a half years old at this point. He's so ready to move on. But the second verse, you just can't help but go back to the film and some of the images that came from that film when listening to it. The motorcycle. I mean, Prince and his motorcycle, after the Purple Rain era, and maybe like after this song, motorcycles were not really a big part of Prince's image beyond like this era. And so for him to comment about his motorcycle again, it's kind of like, well, of course people are going to think of Purple Rain because the iconic motorcycle that was used in the film and all of those scenes with Apollonia on the back of his bike. I put her on the back of my bike. You just can't not think of that. If you are familiar at all with the film, hear those lines and not think of those images. And then going to the barn again, as you said, there's kind of this infamous scene from the film that got cut where I guess they have sex in a barn. And there's a couple of images from that cut scene that ended up in the When Doves Cry music video. Yes. And so that gave us like this glimpse that there was this scene that was filmed. Otherwise, we would have no idea that it ever even existed. But clearly, there were some scenes in a barn filmed, and just didn't make the final cut of the movie. And yeah, so like that whole section right there, the put her on the back of my bike and went riding, that is a very clear callback to Purple Rain, whether he intended to be or not. Because if he wrote this in '82, and if the lyrics were identical from '82 to '84, then it's just a happy accident. But if it wasn't, if he changed some of those lyrics because of some of the things that were filmed for Purple Rain, the movie, then it was very intentional. Then there's no way around that. I like the "built like she was" line, because "built like she was" it implies that, once again, that not only is she beautiful, but she also has a smoking body. That's just the way to a very somewhat crude way of saying it, but that's essentially what he's saying. Built like she was, with that line. It's like she not only was pretty, but she had an amazing body. She must have. And I like the way he says that, built like she was, instead of just saying, like I said, smoking body, which he could have put in there. But that leaves it up once again to interpretation, and for you to kind of fill in the blanks a bit about what was she built like. I mean, what part of her was built that made him, so interested in her, and then also to know that they've had this connection and he's talking to her and he wants to get with her. And why does having her being built like she was have any connection to kind of nerve that she would have to ask him if he planned to do her any harm? So that I think it's just kind of an odd way to say that, because built like she was, she had the nerve to ask me if I planned to do her any harm. Well, I mean, anybody who is going to go out on a first date with some kind of random stranger that she met at a five and dime might want to ask whether or not this guy is planning to do her any harm, whether she's built or not. It really doesn't make any difference. So I think it's just kind of a way for him to sneak that in there to make sure that we knew that she was really good looking and she had a great body.
It could be suggested that because she had such a great body and she looked so good, that she would kind of go along with anything, anything goes, and not really be concerned about what's going to happen. If you're looking this smoking hot, you should be down for anything. So why would you have the nerve to ask me if I'm going to hurt you, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think it also is just meaning like Prince is just, the character he's playing is just incredulous about her even asking that. It's like, you're so beautiful. Why would I harm you? That would just be the dumbest thing I could do. If you're willing to go out with me, willing to jump on my bike, and I have this basically this beautiful goddess behind me. Why would I do you harm? I mean, that would be the dumbest thing I could possibly do in this scenario.
Right.
So he's just like, well, look at yourself. Why would I do you harm? So the second half of the verse about the overcast days never turn me on, but something about the clouds and her mixed. That's just kind of like a really cool line, a couple of lines there. Just another way of kind of expressing how basically in any scenario this woman is going to be attractive to him. Like normally, an overcast day wouldn't cast such a great light on this woman, but when she's underneath the clouds, all I see is beauty still. It doesn't matter. You need just the right light in order to bring out somebody's beauty. And I think maybe what he's trying to say here is it doesn't matter. Sunny day, overcast day, she looks beautiful regardless.
Exactly. I think she changed the day for him. An otherwise gloomy day with her, it changed the landscape. It changed the day for him. She kind of changed the dynamic, made it sunny, so to speak, in his mind.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. I like that take. But then he has to say she wasn't too bright.
I'm like, what is she saying?
It's like, ah. I mean, how do you really gather if somebody's bright or not after that short of a conversation and getting to know her? But I think he just kind of wanted to put in something in kind of interesting in there to give us a clue as to kind of a person she was. And just to make it more interesting, I mean, she wasn't too bright, but I could tell when she kissed me, she knew how to get her kicks. I don't know. I don't really have much more to say about that besides the fact that that is another line that I had misheard as a kid. And not that she wasn't too bright part of that was clear, because he kind of like half sings, half speaks that line.
Right.
And then when he says, but I could tell when she kissed me, she knew how to get her kicks. I always thought he said, I could tell by the way she kissed me, she knew how to give a kiss. That's what I heard as a kid. I didn't hear kicks, get her kicks. I heard give a kiss, which, that just means that she's a good kisser. If you're to hear it that way, but to say that the way she kissed me, she knew how to get her kicks, kind of tells me then that she's experienced. She's a lot more sexually experienced than the person singing the song or the person that she's kissing. If that's his takeaway from her kissing ability, is that she really knows what she's doing.
Mm-hmm. That's what I took
did as
from
well. Yeah. Okay. Did you ever hear that line differently, or did you get that from the beginning?
I got that from the beginning.
Okay, good, because I didn't. So you always at least you heard it right all these years.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, yeah, that's the second verse. So at this point now, she's gotten her alone. I don't know if he's like just ditched work, or
Feels like it.
or if he quit, like if I have the opportunity to spend the rest of my day with this girl, I'm quitting my job and we're getting the hell out of here. Or she just hung out and waited for his shift to be over. I don't know. It's not really important, I guess, but you definitely have the impression that they hit it off at the store and now they're alone and they're headed to Old Man Johnson's farm, which I guess like if it's not his farm, not anybody in his family, that he's trespassing, but it's like he just needs a private place to go,
That's what I took from it. You just know about this farm, but you're not supposed to be there.
Yeah. He figures like, okay, nobody's gonna find me here. Old Man Johnson doesn't ever come out to this part of his farm, so we should be good.
Right.
We should be good for some privacy. Like a very typical Prince song, the third verse is sung differently. It's sung, with different music behind it, and it's not done with the same format or structure as the first two verses. And so the third verse is, the rain sounds so cool when it hits the barn roof, and the horses wonder who you are. Thunder drowns out what the lightning sees. You feel like a movie star. Listen, they say the first time ain't the greatest, but I tell you, if I had a chance to do it all again, I wouldn't change a stroke, 'cause baby I'm the most, with a girl as fine as she was then. Okay, so third verse. This is where you, as the listener, now kind of understand that this was the main character's first time. They say the first time ain't the greatest. Well, I guess it could also be implied that the first time meaning their first time together, too, right? It wouldn't necessarily have to be his first time ever. If you just look at it from the statement, they say the first time ain't the greatest, because I think in maybe not in all situations, obviously, but in many, when you're just meeting somebody for the first time, let's say you've been dating a handful of times and you finally decide to have sex with them, that first time could still be awkward. It could still, like, you're still trying to figure out what they like and what they don't. And so there's an opportunity for that first time to not be the greatest, even if it isn't your first time or their first time. But I think the general consensus is that he's saying that this is this character's first time ever. Do you get that as well?
I got the first one. I felt like he was talking about their first time together, not his first time ever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've always thought of it as the other way, that their first time.
All right. Well, I think either one works, right? I mean, it could go either way, depending on how you want to interpret that. But
Right.
I've read quite a few summaries about this song and people talking about this song where they take it the other direction and they feel like it is a story about losing your virginity to this more experienced girl. And that certainly can be it as well. But I think years ago when I heard the song, I took it the same way you did, where I thought it was just him basically saying that because it was their first time, that it wasn't going to maybe be the best sex they ever had, because they're still trying to, they have that newness to their quote unquote relationship. Whether or not this is a one-time thing or not, we don't know. But you, like I said, you're just still trying to figure each other out, and so maybe there was some awkward fumbling going around because they're still not quite sure what they like and what they want.
Right.
Okay, so I think either way works.
I do too, and that's the brilliance of that lyric. You can take it however way you want.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of people like this verse, and myself included, for like those first few lines, and like the imagery of what that gives us, the picture that it paints for us. And then in the video, this is the part of the song that is animated to kind of show this section of the song. So the rain sounds so cool when it hits the barn roof, and the horses wonder who you are. So that automatically puts you in a place where you imagine like these two people, as we already know they're in a farm, Old Man Johnson's farm. And so now the overcast day that they had been riding around on the motorcycle with, where he mentioned how pretty she was despite it being overcast, now it's raining. So, they've been able to take shelter. And I think even in that purple rain scene in the barn, it's raining, if I recall correctly.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think that there's a camera trick where it looks like water's flowing down over the lens of the camera to kind of obscure a little bit what Prince and Apollonia are doing in this barn. And then the horses just, it's just a comment about basically having sex in front of animals, and they're just like, what?
Yeah, what are you doing? Hello?
Are you going to feed us, or why are you here? And then the thunder drowns out what the lightning sees. I think that's another one of those lines that people just kind of cite with this song as being a really just kind of poetic and brilliant way of basically saying that any noises that they're going to make is going to be drowned out by the thunder. and the lightning sees because it's probably dark in there. So the flashes of lightning are gonna like kind of see and show what is happening in the barn, but you're not going to hear it because the thunder's too loud. And it's a really cool line. I don't know. I mean, I don't think we need to overanalyze it, but I really like that line. Do you feel the same about it? Do you think it's a kind of a cool poetic way just to kind of paint a picture in your mind about what's happening in this barn?
Definitely. It paints the picture of what's going on, and the thunder and the lightning, and the part you feel like a movie star, with the flashing lights. I
Hmm.
thought that was kind of a unique analogy to what was going on with the lightning and the, all the sound effects and light effects. You think movie star. I thought that was kind of unique for that scene, for him to go from that to feeling, the feeling like a movie star with cameras, I guess.
Hmm.
I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what it is. I think was the flashes of lightning, and it's kind of like a little bit of a kinky way of talking about like having sex on camera, if you
Yeah.
think of it from that. But
Hmm.
but we know from future Prince songs that this is a topic that he touches on more than once about recording, making basically a dirty movie with his partner. He does it a few times.
Hmm.
It talks about, it alludes to making uh, like sex tapes or something along those lines, like an erotic movie with his partner and turning that into like some sort of foreplay. I think it also what it might do a little bit is, if you feel like a movie star, you feel kind of important, right? I mean, if you're a movie star, you've got all these people that are interested in you, interested in what you're doing. You kind of feel like you've made it, like you've done something great, something that people are interested in. And so if he feels like he's made it with this girl, then he's on top of the world, and you feel like a movie star, I guess kind of gives the idea that this person's feeling like they're on cloud nine.
That's a different way of looking at it. I like that.
He's just feeling very confident, maybe, at this moment. His
Yes.
confidence couldn't has never been as high as it is in this moment. But the mention that if he had a chance to do it all again, because even though the first time ain't the greatest, if he had a chance to do it all again, he wouldn't change a stroke. So basically saying, no matter what happened with this encounter with this girl, I would not change a thing because it was still perfect in my mind.
He kind of tooted his own horn too, because baby, I'm the most.
Oh yeah, he wouldn't change a stroke because baby, I'm the most. Yeah, for sure. There's that telltale Prince confidence coming
Right.
in here in this section of the song. And if it really was his first time, like if you think of it from the standpoint of his very first time losing his virginity, then in the whole movie star line and I wouldn't change a stroke because baby I'm the most. Boy, I think he's either has very selective memory or he really just is a natural, I guess. I don't know how else
Yeah.
to say it. Because I think a lot of people's first time would never
Mhm.
be considered their best.
No.
Maybe he's just saying this was such a great experience that in his mind he knocked it out of the park. Who knows?
His mind, yes.
So after the third verse, then we just get the chorus again, and there's really no other additional lyrics to the song. But I think the last thing I wanted to mention with the third verse is I had another misheard lyric here as well, and it was the very end when he says, "'Cause baby I'm the most with the girl as fine as she was then." I kind of misheard back in the day um, with this girl as fine as she when she walked in, not as she was then when she walked in, and kind of going back to her kind of walking into this five and dime and just completely enrapturing Prince or the Prince's character in the song when this
Mhm.
girl as fine as she walked in. I mean, it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't really change the meaning of the song or even that verse to hear it the way I heard it as a kid. but I just thought I'd bring it up because I did not necessarily hear with this girl as fine as she was then.
What it's funny, your interpretation actually works. Like you said, it works also.
Yeah, it could.
Saying both, actually.
Yeah, it works. It's not right, but but it works. And also the fact that he does say his girl as fine as she was then, knowing that that's what the line is, it really once again gives me the notion that this is a song sung by a man or a story told by a man many years after this event took place. Because it's obviously in the past, because he used past tense with girls fine as she was then. Now, I mean, it doesn't mean it has to be years. It could be just a few weeks ago, and he's just never seen her again. He's talking about it with a really kind of wistful tone. It kind of gives me the impression that this was a one-time thing. I don't get the feeling that this is a story told about a girl that he ended up dating for a long time, or marrying. Obviously, I get it more like this was just a very fleeting encounter. Do you ever feel that way when you listen to this song, or do you get like this is just a standalone story and what happened after is completely unknown?
I think it was the way it was told. I think it might have been a one-time thing, and he was just telling the story about an experience he had.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I looked at it. There is a lyric in here, "Where have all the raspberry women gone?" What was he talking about there? Where can I find a raspberry woman that I can have another encounter with? I don't know. But
Yeah,
I understand, what he meant by that.
yeah, it kind of makes me think like if he's saying that he just wants.
Because he says women, not woman.
Yeah, not necessarily her. He's just not specifically for this woman, but more generally, where are the other kind of free, open to
Exactly.
basically being down for whatever, for lack of a better word,
Right.
and saying like I want to recreate this because this was such a really kind of fun encounter. I want to do this again with a different woman, another quote unquote raspberry woman.
Exactly.
Meaning somebody who really isn't going to be my soulmate, isn't necessarily somebody that I consider my intellectual equal. Hence that she wasn't too bright line, but she's beautiful. She's got a great body, and she's willing to sleep with me. So that's what I want.
You're right, and it was a good experience for both of them. So, are there women, like you said a moment ago, are there women like that are free spirit like that can just have an experience with me? Yeah.
Yeah, because we're getting this song and we're getting this encounter from his point of view. You never know, like if she were to sing this song, she might have some interesting things to say about him too. Like, oh, he was this kind of dorky, lazy teenage kid that, I saw in this Five and Dime, but he was cute. So I basically took him to this barn. He drove me, but I basically was the aggressor in this, and I got out of him what I was looking for too. Where are all these Five and Dime guys? Where have they all gone? It's equal opportunity, right? I mean, she
Right.
probably wasn't looking for more than just a one-time fling either, and she got what she wanted from him.
I like that.
So yeah, that's essentially Raspberry Beret, the lyrics of the Raspberry Beret, and kind of walking through the story that's being told with this song. I think we both agree it's a really fun song. It's not one of Prince's most deep lyrical compositions. We're not going to debate a lot of the lines too much and like, whoa, what were the hidden meanings here? I think it's pretty clear that it's really just a story song, and it's meant to invoke in us some maybe nostalgic memories of our first times, or nostalgic memories of being younger and really just being more free with our sexuality and with our lives, not having a lot of cares, not really having a lot of responsibilities, and what that means when we meet somebody that's attractive to us. Hormones raging on both sides. Let's have some fun, and what are some kind of cool and memorable stories that can come from those encounters that people can relate to. I mean, that's essentially what I take away from this song. Is just, there's other songs in this vein, not just in Prince's catalog, but people have been singing songs about this type of thing forever. Do you kind of agree with that assessment, or you think there's more to this song that I'm missing?
No, I think it literally was what it was. It was a song talking about an event, a sexual event or experience that this person had. And they told it like a story. They put in, details about the job and, what she was wearing and she came in the outdoor. I mean, I think it was just an experience, a very special experience, the horses and the effects of the storm, during the encounter. I just think it was all a very nice story.
Mm-hmm. To me, this song a little bit has similarities to Little Red Corvette and Darling Nikki, where the song is about a woman that Prince's character meets, and basically what happens in that encounter. Like in Little Red Corvette, she takes him back to her place, and she sees all the jockeys, pictures of the jockeys, and horses running free. You got horses again now in this song, horses wondering who you are. In Darling Nikki, she's like the kind of the aggressor and is the more experienced one, and you kind of get the same vibe from this, even though the difference with Little Red Corvette and Darling Nikki, and then a Raspberry Beret, where I think in all three songs the woman is more experienced and is maybe a little bit more aggressive than the man. But the difference is this is sung with a much lighter tone. The tone of Darling Nikki is more sinister, like
right.
This is kind of like this dark. You get much more darker imagery, much more sexual. And with Little Red Corvette, it's more sung like a cautionary tale. Like he's worried. He doesn't feel like he's up to snuff. He doesn't, and he's worried that she's moving much too fast and that she's going to burn her body right to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But in Raspberry Beret, the tone is much lighter, and it's much get more of like a happy and, like I said, wistful feeling about it. Even though the songs, I think, do have some similarities, the tone and how the lyrics are written completely different between Raspberry Beret and those other two songs I mentioned.
A schoolboy's encounter from like an 80s movie or something.
Yeah, schoolboy's encounter versus, grown folks, like in the other ones. All right. Any final thoughts on Raspberry Beret, Karen, before we wrap it up?
No, I think we covered a lot. It definitely, when I do these podcasts, it gives me a different perspective, a different way of looking at his songs. I definitely appreciate the opportunity, and like I said, it's one of my favorites by him, and just to hear a different take on it is always good for me.
Okay, well, I think then we are at the end of this episode of the Press Rewind Prince Lyrics podcast. I've been your host, Jason Brenninger. I wanted to thank Karen Shedrick again for taking time out of your day to talk with me about Raspberry Beret, which, 35 years ago now. So it was a big hit in the summer of '85, and we're recording this in the summer of 2020. So I think, enough time has passed that we can certainly still lay claim that this song is relevant, and it's certainly still a very memorable and catchy and fun song from that time frame that Prince was, kind of putting out this new sound, this kind of psychedelic and world music sound that he was doing around this time. And thank you, Karen, for talking with me about it and kind of discussing the lyrics.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me. I can't think of anything better to do than to talk about Prince. So thank you again.
Yep, that's awesome. I agree with you on that one. So thanks again. You guys can find me on Instagram and Twitter at PressRewind75. I have a Facebook page as well. Please write me and let me know what you think about this song. Do you think it still holds up 35 years later as one of Prince's best? Or are you kind of like Karen and I, where, it's been a little overplayed, and it's unfortunate because it is a very good song, but any song that you hear too many times can get a little old. So, but if you're new to Prince's discography, like there's still new people listening to his music all the time. What do you think about this song? Do you feel like it is still relevant in 2020, or do you kind of feel like there's better songs on this album than Raspberry Beret, and this just was a big hit because it was such a perfect pop song? Either way, I'd like to hear from you. So feel free to write, feel free to comment, and until next time, goodbye.